Energy. It is all around us, both seen and unseen. It affects all the lives within humanity, our great planet Earth, and the entire universe. It is a conscious cosmic matrix, an ever-evolving cycle, creating, breaking down, and recreating. This is Connected with your host, Andrea Dragonfly. Andrea tells us that energy is the foundation of our human experience, intrinsically affecting every facet of our lives, our perceptions, choices, and actions, as well as the challenges, opportunities, and people we attract. So now, please welcome the host of Connected, Andrea Dragonfly.
Hey, good people, welcome. Welcome to the show Connected. I'm your host, Andrea Dragonfly. And today is a pre-recorded show for tomorrow, which is July 4th. So here in the United States, we're celebrating our Independence Day. And so happy Independence Day to all of the Americans. And if you're not an American, you can also wish happy Independence Day to all the Americans. So hopefully everybody has an opportunity to hang out and enjoy family, friends, and, freedom. And freedom is going to have this underlying energy of what we're talking about today. And so I've been talking about life cycles, seasons, as well as reincarnation, different incarnations, and been kind of like pulling these different concepts together. I also started talking about the process of initiation last week. And we're going to carry all of this forward as well. And first of all, I just like to say that we are 2 weeks into the summertime. And I am already feeling my different types of cycles of life, death, rebirth, fully activated within myself. And so as we had moved into summer and this time to shine and time to show who we are and what we're all about, sometimes what we want for ourselves isn't always exactly where we find ourselves in what our situation is, right? And so I'm looking at my own transitions and how my transitions are moving me in different directions. And these are cycles, right? These are the life cycles of all of our human experiences. And so looking at even the life cycles, I'm going to do a little bit of a review here. Life cycle of, our process as a human. And we can also look at the rites of passage. And these are the celebrated kind of passages that we go through as humans. And of course, we're born, we come into the world. I talked about this as the springtime and as as we first, pop up through the earth, that beginning of the new life is coming into the springtime. This is where we enter into the earth, and we have our childhood. And our childhood is huge. Our childhood is very important as to how we create the lens and how we see the world. So our childhood has, a lot of information. In these earlier shows, episodes 1 and 2 even, I was talking about like our lens, how we see the world is going to affect how we can connect into the world. Sometimes some of us come in with, a full cup, and we have lots of resources available to us. And other people come in without that full cup. They come in with a half empty cup, and they struggle and the resources aren't as available to them. But that childhood is really that time where we really begin to kind of inform our energy field is where we're going. And then we also develop our independence, our I, individuality. This is where we're recognizing who are we as we go through adolescence into our teens and even into our early 20s, and that whole growth process of really discovering who are we in this world where we're all so unique and different. We're going to all have a very unique perspective and experience to how we, interact and relate with the world, right? And so this is that individuality. We come into high school, many people go to college or vocational school or some sort of, further studies, or they get into the job. And this is where we are like, this is what I'm aligning myself with. And so this is, again, that first kind of like coming into the rite of passage of coming into truly that I individuality. Sometimes we see this, in the United States, it's 21 where people, are getting they're able to now like buy alcohol and other types of substances that are not, legal for the teenager, and even at 18. So it's also like a little bit of a time frame where we have graduated high school, we're coming into the world, we're going into college, we're being able to identify who we are in the world. And so that's a celebration that we move into. We celebrate that through graduations and the 21st birthday or the 18th birthday, or however it is for you and your family. And then we find partnership. We usually have that partner, and then we begin the journey of, is this the partner for me, right? And eventually at some point, and maybe it didn't happen in your life, or maybe you've had many marriages in your life, but we move into this place where we leave behind the I individual, my dreams, my ambitions, what I want for myself, and we unionize, we come together. And it's no longer just about me. Now it's about me and this other person. Now it becomes the we, and it's about how this is a rite of passage of marriage, of how do we come together and negotiate and bridge our dreams together and support each other and walk each other forward, because I'm no longer alone. It's not just me. It's us together. And that in itself is a passage. And we celebrate that. And in that passage, we're going to go through these trials. We're going to go through the tests. We're going to have different types of challenges and difficulties come our way that are going to show up in that relationship. And whether that relationship can stand the test of that time, then you go through the different trials. And in the trials, and if you're together for a long period of time, you have many trials. And these trials are how we grow together. And this is, again, these are these processes. And maybe within those, we decide to have children, and bring in the new life and bring in and raising the children. And again, then there's the birth cycle all over again. But now we are responsible for those lives. And of course, those are going to bring challenges. Children aren't easy. Children are a gigantic commitment, and they take so much love and guidance to really grow beautiful children, helpful children in the world, good citizens, good people, love and full of light, and contributors to the greater good of humanity. And of course, there's a lot of children that have been neglected, and a lot of children that have to figure out how to find that on their own. And those are all different passages. Those are the tests and trials of life, right? And then as we go through our life, we're going through the season, and usually at that point, we talk about the summer season. The adolescence is the spring season, summer season. We're going through our lives, and then we move into the fall, and by then our children are grown if we've chosen to have children, or our careers are have fully developed, and we have gotten, to major monumental milestones within our, career patterns, or whatever that is for each individual. We all have these different lives. And then we're able to start to reap what we've sown, right? We move into the West, we move into the fall part of our lives, the autumn, where we begin to look back and see all that we've done, all that we've created, all that we've grown through the summers, planted in the spring, grown through the summer. And now we're at the golden age of our life. It's the sunset of that period of our lives. And I spoke earlier about how sometimes we can see these in 15 or 20 degree cycles, right? So somewhere around 15, 20 degree cycles of how we can move into these different phases of life. And here we also celebrate, this is also where we can get into retirement. We can also celebrate ourselves coming into the 50. We can, And when we hit 50, we're at the top of the hill. And when we hit 51, now we're over the hill, right? So we're moving into those places, and we're looking at, what have I done in my life and what can I look back on, right? And and then as we move through those golden years of looking back and, celebrating with retirement and celebrating with, being able to just take it easy, we move into the phase of the winter time of our death. And through that death is where we leave our bodies behind, and we move on. Our spirits reflect, and it reflects in that whole incarnation, what that whole life was about, all of the challenges, all of the beauty, the triumphs, the accomplishments, being able to look back at your legacy of what you've done in that lifetime. And this is the death process. This is also winter solstice, is that time of looking back at the season. And we're in that quiet time of stillness and silence for especially the northern hemisphere. Winter solstice, when we're near the equator, is a little different. There's a lot more sun. We have a lot more we have different seasons depending on where we're even located in the globe, right? And then in that phase, we get ourselves ready to birth again in a new way, and we harvest the lessons. We harvest all of that we've learned in that lifetime. And then we can look at how that's the life cycle. And in our life cycle, we have many different life, death, rebirth cycles. So those are like the big rites of passage that we recognize throughout a life, a life process, a whole life term. But then we look at these mini life and death cycles. And these mini life and death cycles will show up in relationships. They'll show up in our career. They can show up in friendships and community, and maybe places that we've lived and moved and created a life, in this state. And then we were there for so many years, and then we left and went to this state. But it can also even be our identity. It could also be different challenges that we have stepped into with some of that. And so this is a pre-recorded show. We are going to jump to commercial here. So there is no call-ins at this time, but I want to go ahead and just so you know, do what you need to do. And we're going to break for commercial. When we get back, we're going to talk more about these mini life, death, and rebirth cycles, because they play out throughout our whole lives. So I'll see you back here in just a couple minutes.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is in a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery, or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Hey, welcome back. So, we are talking about the mini cycles of life, death, and rebirth throughout our lives. And we can even look at this with relationships. You can think about your very first love. So, what if this was your girlfriend, if this was your boyfriend, and how we come into those relationships. And then you have this journey of learning about love. What was this all about? And so we're going to actually talk deeper about the processes of these journeys, but I really just want to introduce how we have had these multiple cycles throughout our lives. And so that first love, learning about, oh my goodness, what's this all about, and the excitement and whatnot. And then you go through the trials, you go through the tests, you come into this place where you recognize, for whatever reason, maybe that first love was in high school and you're going to be going in different directions and you decide that you're going to break up and give each other space to go live life, right? Or maybe you had multiple boyfriends in high school or girlfriends in high school. I'm a woman, so I'm saying boyfriends, but so we're looking at the process even of relationship. How many different people did you date before you actually found the person that you were going to marry? Your first marriage, if you've had more than one marriage, right? And then each one of those relationships, how long were you in them? What did you learn from them? So that's a cycle of this birth, this life. You come into this new relationship, there's all this life, go through these processes, and you realize this person isn't exactly the right one, right? And so I'm going to break up with this partner, and that becomes the death, the end of that cycle. And in that death, usually we have a period of time of reflection. What did I learn? What did I not really get from that relationship that I really want for myself? Or maybe that person broke up with you and you were like, oh, my heart's broken. I need time to tend my broken heart before I jump into another relationship. So that's the death cycle. It's that reflection cycle. And then we take what we can learn from it and we bring it into potentially the next relationship. Now, we're not right now, but when we get back from our next commercial, I'm going to introduce the hero's journey. I'm introducing it right now, but we're going to pull up a slide, not right now, but it's going to look at this cycle of how we go through life and how there's different stages that we are going through this life, death, rebirth process until we come into this next cycle. So we're going to get into more details around that and just after next commercial. However, then we can look at, then with the new life, we decide, okay, I'm ready to enter into a new relationship. And some people are just like, I need to be in a relationship. And so there's this part of them that doesn't like to feel alone, or maybe there's some elements of codependency in there that is like, serial daters and monogamists and serial monogamy, let me see if I get my words out. And then they're like dating one person after another, really looking for somebody, really looking for that one. And so everybody's going to have a different relationship to that. And this, again, is just with relationships, right? And so we're moving ourselves in, and then maybe you finally find that one. You find the one that you're going to marry. And then the cycle gets so much more intense and bigger, but it's growing us. It's stretching us. It's expanding us consciously as well, because again, like I talked about earlier, we're going from one person in our individuality to marriage, where we're now saying, yes, I am in a relationship with the other person. It's not just about me anymore. It's about us coming together. And there's a lot of challenges with that, right? And so this, again, we're looking at this in relationships and the process, but we can look at this also in the career path, going from, high school into college, or high school into, your first job, wherever you are in life, and looking to see, okay, what is this job? I work here for so long, I have all these experiences, learning the tools, learning the way, learning skills, right? And then decide, okay, this job doesn't pay me enough. I need a different job, or it doesn't work with my new schedule because I'm going to, do this part-time or whatever that is. And then there's that death cycle of that job, the reflection of even writing that resume out. What were the skills I learned from that? How do I take what I've learned and bring it in, integrate it into my energy field, expand me, land it so I will always have these skills, and then move into getting, a new job, getting that new hire. The cycle begins again. And then you're there, and maybe you're there and you actually even get a promotion, and you move from a certain place of, being at, a low entry position into a manager or some other, higher entry position. And then also all those skills, and you have to figure your way out through that. And so there's this, and even though it's still in the same, company, your position has changed. And so it was a cycle of, okay, I came in, I did that. Now I'm moving into another aspect of that. Now I'm doing this. And there is a life, death, rebirth process of being able to take all that you learned during that time as you move it forward, right? And so we can also even do this with identity. There's many people who go through life and have an identity crisis and say, I was so caught up in that relationship. I was so caught up in that job. And I am being asked, not that I'm being asked, I'm being forced, I'm being pushed, maybe even against one's will. Normally we don't say, we don't wake up in the morning and say, oh, I want to change my identity. Usually it happens without us knowing that it's about to happen. And we have to say, oh my God, who am I? And we have to come into this whole new place because maybe we were living this life, again, whether it was a relationship, whether it was a career path, it could be innumerable other scenarios that have shown up for you that you were like, this was not the life path. My soul, our GPS system is saying, I need to get out of this. I'm miserable. I'm not happy. I need something new. I need what my soul is desiring. What is that? And I have to go through the process of understanding, reflecting what didn't work for me, what does work for me, what do I really want to do with myself? Where am I going? So again, this is that cycle of that old part of you had to die. We want to die. We don't want to bring that forward. That's maybe it was a part of you that was, unhappy, depressed, toxic. This is even in our healing. We want to leave that part of us that was traumatized. And of course, we can honor that part of us. We can certainly, we want to grow from it. We want to learn from it, but we don't want to keep carrying it with us like, like baggage. Like every time you meet somebody, you're like, hi, here's me and my trauma, right? You want to be like, hey, my trauma is, I'm learning from it. I'm integrating it. I'm healing it. My trauma has helped make me who I am, but I'm not my trauma anymore. I'm creating a new identity. Right? And usually death is a powerful transformational process, whether it's somebody that we are in relationship with and they die, whether it's one of our family members, siblings, parents, whether it's one of our children, if we have children. The power of death is wholly and hugely transformational, completely shifting the way we see the world. Depending on how we're connected to that person. The deeper the connection, the more powerful the world falls apart and has to be seen in brand new eyes again, right? And so it's this life, death, rebirth cycle again. And then in the grief and in the mourning of the lost one, and this can even be our lost other self. It could be the lost relationship. It could be the lost career path that we focused and put so much money into with our education and decided to take a completely different path. There's that grief, and that grief has innumerable gifts. And so I was also thinking about 4th of July and independence, and about the fight for freedom and the fight for liberty. And I was just even thinking about the United States, and of course there's so much about the United States and, coming into, the nation in which we are. But there's always also, with any type of fight, with any type of war, there's the conqueror and there's the conquered. And I was also thinking about the conquered, right? And about freedom, and what does freedom really mean? And I got, I'm very philosophical, and I'm very internal, and I play with a lot of ideas and play with how they feel for me and invite them to inform me. Because even in these places of the life, death, rebirth cycle, that death is oftentimes a place where we feel conquered, that life has conquered us. And this is the opportunity through that death phase where we reflect. And in that reflection is where we get these gifts. And these gifts actually come with a sense of empowerment. And within that empowerment comes a sense of freedom. And so looking at Independence Day for the United States and, just playing with our own stories. What's the story of your life? Where did you feel conquered at one time? And then maybe reflected to learn, what's the bigger lesson here? What's the gift? This is a reason. This is here to expand me, to grow me consciously, to help me understand that the world is so much bigger than maybe what I thought it was just a little bit ago, right? Like, we get these huge monumental experiences in life to grow us. We couldn't be human. We could not be on the human experience in these human bodies without each and every one of us having these different types of cycles. And some of them are far more intense than others, right? Sometimes we have the midlife crisis, sometimes the midlife crisis comes from not walking the path of your soul and needing to completely redirect. And, and that could be the identity crisis, or maybe that's where you've lived enough life and the divorce comes, or somebody dies that's really, essential to how your everyday experience was. They were such a major part of your living life that you don't know what it's going to be like to not have them. And so these are these moments. These are those cycles. These are those reincarnations. We can also look at them through the whole life cycle. We die, we reflect, we come back, and when we're reincarnated into a new lifetime, we're bringing the healing. I'm sorry, we're not bringing the healing. We're bringing the knowledge. We're bringing a new sense of wisdom. And one of the things is that our children, if we have children, our children they're wiser than we are. They're coming in because they've already processed, they've been reincarnated, and they're bringing in the new wisdom to actually expand the consciousness of the new, generations to come. So they often say that, our elders, let's see, the elder, like we are the, I probably should have thought about this before because now I'm on the spot, but it's like our elders, we're the children, we're the new generation of the elders. We're bringing in the new shifts and changes that the world needs for the evolutionary process. But that we're actually older souls than the elders, and our children are older, like they've gotten the wisdom that's needed for the next evolution of humanity, for the next, generations to come. And so it's like this flip, and I'm not saying this right, and I should have thought about this before, but also things just kind of come in, and usually I expect that I don't have the words for them, but it's also like looking at this in this way. So we're looking at these cycles, these many different types of cycles. And so we're going to go ahead and look at it even further. We're going to take this second break. And then when we get back from the break, I'm going to introduce the hero's journey. And the hero's journey is a powerful journey that we can look at. We can even walk with on a monthly lunar cycle, which I will also talk about. But we're going to look at how these experiences really grow us and give us the opportunity, and how and where the initiation process is, because I talked about initiation last week, and how all of these experiences have these elements of initiation to move us into this next phase of expanded consciousness. So we'll be back here in 2 minutes. So take your time, do what you need to do.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. Yeah, it feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com. 7429 Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hey there. So moving over so we can get this graph up, and we're going to be talking about the hero's journey. And the hero's journey was actually first kind of coined by Joseph Campbell. And he wrote the book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. And this is really a monomyth. And a monomyth, really what that means is that it means that it's part of mythology where Joseph Campbell started to see patterns, right? And a lot of the mythology that even came from Greek and Roman myths, we can also see that are playing out regularly throughout every human's life. Not that we're going to play out every single myth, we're not, but we're going to have some centralized myths that we're playing out within our lives. And the monomyth happens to be the hero's journey in this case because all of us are going through these cycles, right? And so this is a pattern in humanity that that we're all living in different ways at different times. And usually there's multiple stages. And now I have this image on the on the screen. And I'm also going to have this image on my website under the media, and it'll be under episode 18. And so you can come back here and take a look at it and really dive in because, again, this is Joseph Campbell's version, and there's a lot of extra details that I may not talk about. I'm not going to talk about. I'm going to talk about this more as it applies to us as every human. And, but I am going to certainly be talking about these different steps. And I invite you, there's so much on YouTube even, like typing in the hero's journey, many different types of speakers really kind of, looking at all of these different movies, all these different stories of the hero on the hero's journey. But this is what I'm inviting you to look at within yourself. Where have you been the hero in your journey? And so sometimes, the journey could be this very big shift, again, where you are moving into a whole new mysterious, unknown scenario. You're moving across the nation, you're moving to another country, or something something like that, where you're not in a familiar place. And many people have, they stay close to home, and their lives have been always been close to home. But even if you've lived close to home, there still is probably a hero's journey that you've gone on through relationships, through career, through something that we talked about, through transitions of, walking, a family member through the death threshold stages and whatnot. Like, there's always something, because to be human, we're going to have something. And so it's an invitation to look at you and yours. What was your something? But starting with the hero's journey, there's usually multiple steps and stages. And the very first stage that we can see even on the screen here is that there is what's called the calling. And the calling means that there's something there. And this could even be like a life path, a career path. If you were, called to be a doctor, that calling to be a musician, a calling to be an energy healer and practitioner, a calling to devote your life to Buddhism or any type of spiritual practice, right? There's a calling that you feel that begins to develop within you that says, oh, this is interesting. It sparks that attention. It sparks that fire within you that brings the curiosity. And usually with the calling, there's this moment where we retract. We're like, I'm not going to do that. No, that's too much. I don't know. That's going to take a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of time. My family expects something else of me. I want to be, an artist instead of the lawyer that my family wants me to be. So, like, there's these struggles that we have that we can then talk about, like, oh no, we want to talk ourselves out of that calling. But the calling still is there. It's still kind of like, it won't go away, right? So it's that energy behind you that keeps redirecting your attention and your focus. And then you decide, okay, yes, I'm going to go. I'm going to go on the calling. I'm going to do it. And so then what happens is, on that, you might meet somebody, or before you actually take those first steps, maybe you do your research. You look into what's it going to be. Maybe you get some counseling. Maybe you talk to friends. Maybe if you think about a career path that you're really looking at, then you're going to meet with maybe a mentor. And so even in Joseph Campbell's imagery here, it's about meeting the mentor. We're going to meet the mentor. And sometimes this could be the supernatural. This could be meeting with spirit. If you have a spiritual vocation and you're being called to do something, then you're like, what is this? And you're going to have this interaction. And even if we think about the story of the Lord of the Rings, this is where, Frodo even, is meeting with Gandalf, and he is being asked to go do this huge feat. And he's like, I can't do this. What do you mean? And so then, but Gandalf is that mentor, right? And so it's this process, and, Gandalf is the wizard. He's a wise one. And he's like, no, you can do this. People who are looking at getting their graduate, coming into a graduate program are going to meet with some of their mentors as their teachers. They're going to figure out this. So they're going to meet with that mentor. And within that meeting, they're going to feel like, yes, I can do this. I'm going to do this. And again, no matter where you are in your life, there's so many different life scenarios. Look to see who is that mentor for you, right? And then we move from, okay, the decision is made. I'm going to do this. I'm going to step through this. And you begin to step on the road. And so this is the road of trials and tests. And when we get onto the road of trials and tests, we are going to, this is where we actually cross the threshold. We say, yes, we step into the adventure. So we step into this new thing. And the trials and the tests is, what does it take to know this? And so at the very beginning, they're going to be little ones, right? learning how to, let's say you want to be a pianist or play the guitar or whatever, what all these different things are, you're going to have to learn how to toughen up your fingertips if you're playing the guitar and the guitar strings. There's all sorts of things, all the tests, the trials. And then there's also the allies that come with that. And in those allies, they're going to be, they're going to help you along the way. They're going to come together. Maybe you want to be a well-known musician in the world, and you have to bring your band member together, right? Or maybe you are, this is where we find our best friends in college, or this is where we find our best friends in life, is we're coming together because we're like-minded. We're all working towards something together, and we find people along the way that we can connect with, and that we know that there's going to be these obstacles, right? So in college, like if you're going to medical school or whatever, you are studying for that test and you meet a classmate who's studying for that test, the obstacle is like, how are we going to get through this test when we know that the teacher here is, part of the enemy? Like, we have to overcome the enemy. We have to come together, band together. And so that's where we really enter into that first threshold. We step in and we cross that threshold, and we have to really kind of go inside and say, wow, this is uncomfortable. This is different. This is challenging me, right? And then this can again be with relationships. Even looking at a new relationship. How does this relationship challenge you? You're learning about a completely new person, and they have all of their life experiences, and they have their idiosyncrasies, and they have different elements about them. And this is where we're like negotiating how this person, is this person going to be our one? Is this person not our one? All those things, right? And so we come into this place where we're going to have these interactions with ourselves. And we have to really get real. What is it that I want? What is it that I really deeply desire for myself? And so we have to like move into this place of like going deep within us. And sometimes even within the college scenario, this is where you're like, oh, I want to be like for me, it's like, oh, I wanted to get into anthropology, but there's so much about anthropology. There's biological anthropology. There's let me see if I can even remember because it's been so long ago, but there's like archaeology, there's evolution, and all sorts of different aspects of this. Like, where's my focus? There's medical anthropology. That was what I originally wanted to go in for, but I ended up going into cultural anthropology. So there's the branches, there's the things that we have to go in and find within ourselves. And so and in the process, when we're looking at all these different parts of us, we get into this place where we end up having to really deeply find what is the right path for me. So we get into the ordeal. And the ordeal is where sometimes here he talks about dismemberment, where we can get pulled apart into all these different ways. We thought we wanted this, but really it's not what we want, and we need to kind of come back together again. And then we find the elixir. There's the reward by being pulled apart and having to really look at us. We get to see ourselves and have a reunification with our own self. And then we enter into the second threshold. And again, when we cross into that second threshold, we're going to go into another pattern. These are the trials. This is the initiation process. When we stepped through that first threshold, we became the initiate. When we said yes, we became the initiate. And these are the trials of the initiation process. So all of these different things begin to happen. And so we're going to take another break here and finish this process up and do a quick connection after that. But we are definitely working with time here. So I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break, do what you need to do, come back, and we'll finish out the initiation process and into the final stages of the hero's journey. Thank you.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery, or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense Radio Show with host Dr. Broderick. Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hey, welcome back. So we are talking about the hero's journey, and we are just moving through the second threshold. And so here on the chart, it talks about the supreme ordeal. This is where we're really kind of wrestling with what it is that we need to do, what we need to learn. Like, you can't be a brain surgeon or a surgeon in general unless you would go through all of the medical information, to be able to really get you there. And oftentimes it's a lot of memorization. Oftentimes it's a lot of, hands-on work, and it can be sleepless nights, and it can be, like really intense, testing, and same thing with, lawyers, and same thing with even people on the spiritual path, being able to be, on this process of, becoming an initiate of holding energy medicines and having to go through your own, excavating of your own shadow self and your own soul, and knowing, how to tap into the depth of the cosmos. Like, that's not something you can just easily do like that. That's something that takes time. This is the time. And we're going to find these parts within our journey that are going to be like, oh my God, this is too hard. This is unbearable. And, and I remember even in my own process, my own life, I had what's called a shamanic death, where my whole life imploded. And my whole life came together. Everything I thought I knew. My marriage was falling apart. My sister was diagnosed with cancer and was dying. And my community was falling apart because my relationship was falling apart. My family was falling apart. Everything I knew was falling apart. And I remember just like looking at the sky, the cosmos, like looking at the heavens and saying, what is this? I can't handle this. Like, what are you doing to me? And I had to go into this new place. And so there's this place from, having to going into the dark place of really looking at, what is this, like being annihilated? There's this annihilation phase. But in that annihilation phase is this opportunity. So as we go through the supreme ordeal, where actually that annihilation phase is part of us ascending up. We're coming into this new place. The annihilation place is essential to our growth. It breaks us apart into a gazillion pieces so that we can really find the ones that are most essential. And we get rid of everything else that wasn't part of who we know we need to be in this lifetime. And we're also blown wide open into a whole nother level of experience to the world, where we can then find the gift of like, oh shit, what the hell was that? And about like, my heart is now wide open. Everything about my heart was annihilated. Everything I knew about love was completely just squashed and broken into a gazillion pieces. But now I come into this place of absolute incredible love that I could have never known prior. This is that moment. This is one of those aha moments. And this is where we come and we rise out of this. It's also known as like this place of resurrection. We're coming out of the trials. We're coming out of whatever it is. This could be the divorce. This could be the death. This could be, so many different aspects of our lives that we've gone through. And if you haven't gone through it yet and you're still young, know that somewhere along the way, it's going to show up in some way, right? It is. It just is. And now we come from, now we're coming from out of the underworld, this whole new world that we dove into. We're becoming initiated. This is where of course, we're being initiated. We're being initiated the whole way. But these are those moments where we're really absolutely shifting and changing. This is the true moments of those initiations that says, yes, you made it. You made it through. Now, some people don't make it through to that final initiation. They're still on the path of the initiate. They got stuck and they're still there. And it's okay. And this is where if we don't have love in our heart, if we don't recognize that this is taking us and leveling us up to a whole new game, and we're still holding resentment, we're still holding anger, we're still holding anything that keeps us, from fully receiving the gift, we haven't finalized the wheel yet. We're still on the journey, because the journey ultimately is unconditional love. It's compassion. It's forgiveness. It's blow me apart and crack me wide open so I can receive more. Bring me to the next level, right? So then we move into what's called the third threshold. And we move into this place where we've had to let go of who we were before. We can no longer be who we once were. We're changed. We're shifted. And now we're going to step forward into this new place. And so as we move into this new place, that new place becomes, maybe this is where we really shine. This is where our life shifts. This is where we really make it through. And here, as we pass the third threshold, here on the chart, we're looking at the catharsis stage, the climax. This is where that was necessary for us to exalt into this new place. And then we move into that resurrection, and then we become these master of the two worlds. We begin to incorporate that now. Now we have to move ourselves into this new person that we've become. And again, so this is that initiation phase that leads us into the life-death part. That death was that annihilation, rebirth part. And we are now in a whole new place that allows us to start integrate, reflect, be with it. And then we move into this place where we are then able to be in that new space and be there hopefully for a long time. So here we're moving into that place where we finally have the freedom to live. Sorry, I keep moving. Finally have the freedom to live that new life with us. And so, so with that, we're born anew. We're a whole new person. And so we're moving into a whole new place in life. And sometimes we get these different, we have multiple of these. Sometimes we then, I'm 50 and I'm now about to embark on another journey of the unknown, the complete unknown. But anyway, we have come to the end of our time. I also see that I forgot to plug my computer in, so my computer is actually losing its juice. But I want to say thank you. Thank you for joining with me on the hero's journey. Check this out on YouTube. Check this out through even Joseph Campbell's book, The Hero of the Thousand Faces. We're all in this together. All we're doing is we're walking each other home. And it's always a pleasure. If you enjoyed this and if you enjoyed any one of my episodes, you can always like it in the corner of the YouTube video. You can also subscribe specifically to my channel. I've never said that before because I I don't know why, but I would love it for you to join me. Keep following along. There's so much other good, yummy stuff that's to come. Happy freedom, happy independence for those. Happy independence for everybody, whether you're American or not, right? Go enjoy and connect to your cycle. See how this lives for you and find your freedom. Go in peace.
This has been Connected with your host, Andrea Dragonfly. Join Andrea each week on an extraordinary journey, exploring the consciousness of energy and how you are connected. Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.